Top story we're following today, and a big development on something we've been following for months here at CTV News. A man from Ontario accused of selling sodium nitrate and other dangerous materials to people at risk of suicide is now facing a dozen new charges based in Ontario alone. We should also point out there are a number of international investigations going on. Kenneth Law is his name. CTV's Jon Woodward, investigative reporter, has been following the story for a number of months now. These new charges, John, what they mean, the implications.
Yeah, this is a big development, Todd. It sort of signifies the shift that's gone on since May, when we heard there were two people that Kenneth Law, a 57-year-old chef, used to work at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel. He was accused of aiding and abetting suicide in two cases just in Mississauga. Then the scale of this became apparent. He was sending, according to the police at the time, 1,200 packages to more than 40 countries. And in Ontario, they brought 11 police organizations together in a multi-jurisdictional task force that's headed out of York Region. On Monday, the new charges were sworn. And when you look at them and the obituaries that they're tied to, it's another dozen cases of tragedy. People as young as 16, as high as, I believe it's 32 in this particular batch. I've talked to some of their relatives this morning, and it's very hard to talk about because these are people who took their own lives, but the police are alleging in these charges that they were coaxed to do so by a man selling the products. The victims have highlighted on the fact that he was paid, or his companies were paid as part of this. And we've seen some email trails that indicate the back and forth between the companies that were operated by Kenneth Law and these people that indicate some sales tactics and some pressure were used. And that's not the end of it. These cases that we're talking about today are just within the Ontario border. So when you look at the tracking that we've done, we can point to other cases that may be tied to Kenneth Law that family members believe based on documentation and other things. As far out as BC, as far back as February 2021, I should say. And even then, when you look internationally, the scope is enormous. Over in England, in Britain, I should say, the National Crime Agency there is investigating Mr. Law criminally for 88 cases, 88 deaths, looking at 272 orders in Britain alone. And then when you go internationally, we've been keeping track of what now looks like to be a tally of 110 deaths that are possibly linked to Kenneth Law, relying on what the authorities have said, what family members have said, what media have said. And through it all, the reason these numbers are so large is because he was operating through websites that were accessible from any corner of the world. And one of the things that I think it's important to say is that the charges here are mainly related to young people. We have heard of other cases, older people and so on, and that may indicate, or may give some context to the argument that we've heard from Ken Law himself before he was arrested, which is that he is not responsible for what people do with these products. If people choose to end their lives, they may do it in a number of ways, and just merely the fact that his product was used doesn't make him any more responsible than another product sold by somebody else used in another lethal way. But talking to the family members here, many of them looking at someone who was as young as 17, and Anthony Jones in Michigan was 17, looking at somebody like that and saying this was somebody who was in the prime of their life, and to have that person gone is a tragedy, and they're looking for the criminal justice system to provide answers to them on this.
Yeah, we're just looking at these new charges in the different regions of Toronto. Jon Woodward joining us, investigative reporter with CTV. He's been following this story for months now involving Kenneth Law, and now 12 new charges, and it's perhaps likely there will be more charges to come, as this is now a global investigation. John, always good to see you. Thanks for taking the time today.